Hi there, listeners. It's Lisa Starr and another edition of the Starrcast Podcast. So, there's been so much in the news lately about, well, the L word, longevity, and how do we get to that? And I thought it would be interesting to have someone on who's an expert in getting to that very issue, being older, aging gracefully, and how we manage that. So, I'm delighted to welcome Nancy Griffin, who is the founder of the Glowing Older business and podcast to the show today. Welcome, Nancy. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Lisa. Very happy to be here.
So, Nancy and I, full disclosure, have known each other, God knows, we should probably not say how many years it's been. Nancy, why don't you tell listeners a little bit about your path into the wellness world?
Well, I started at Cornell Hotel School in the mid 90s, 1993 to 95, in their graduate program. And being from Northern California, I kind of got the whole, what was burgeoning spa industry at the time, which was mostly destination spas, what we call now wellness resorts,
Hmm.
and amenity spas, which were spas that were attached to a resort. So being from Northern California, we were doing meditation and yoga and hugging trees and all that kind of stuff. So, being the token Californian in the program, I really understood the spa industry. And Mary Tabaki, who many are familiar with in the spa industry, was doing some research with the International Spa Association. And I got involved with that, doing the first classification study on the industry. So, when I got out of school, everyone said, "Great, you should get a job behind a front desk and you'll learn about operating a spa." So I never did that. I've always worked outside of the spa industry, kind of looking at the bigger picture, working with vendors coming into the spa industry, founded a couple products, Spa Trade and Spa Exec that I sold to QuestX Media Group in 2008, right before Lehman fell. And then I
Timing.
founded Contento Marketing, did that for 11 years, and then lost most of my business during COVID, like all of my
Mm.
business, because the spa shut down and such. And I had a lot of free time. And that's when I started the Glowing Older podcast. My grandfather was involved in senior living, and I saw many of my friends in the industry were digging into the senior living side of it. So I thought it would be a great way to learn, sort of like a graduate degree. I know
Hmm.
you find you learn a lot from doing these pods. So
Hmm.
that's really how I started doing Glowing Older.
It's funny that, COVID brought that about because it brought about Starrcast too. That's when I started it. I mean, we're home with all this time on our hands. Let's start a podcast. And here we are. What is it, 4 or 5 years later? So good for both of us.
Yes, we
Anyway,
started about the same time.
I think it's great that you turned to focus on that older market. And I thought that was an interesting shift that happened around COVID, like the focus on aging healthily, aging gracefully, and it became sort of this sub segment. But I'm, I mean, starting a podcast on it, I don't think anyone was covering that at the time. What really made you say, wait, this senior market needs more attention?
Gosh, well, I mean, 11,000 people are turning 65 in this country a day.
Mm.
I just got involved peripherally with the Aging Well initiative for the Global Wellness Institute and talked to Dave McCown, who's out based in Thailand and has worked with McCann Advertising. And he was saying that it's literally globally. I mean, Indonesia,
Hmm.
which is supposed to be a young country, is
Hmm.
an aging population as well. So this is a global issue. And so I thought the best way to learn about the industry would be to interview experts. So I started mostly in senior living. And then I realized pretty quickly that my key listener base were women over a certain age, right?
Uh-huh.
So it wasn't really, I was talking to the industry, I was talking to people that want to know how to age well. So I switched from talking about the business of aging well to innovations in aging well. So interviewing authors and developers of different housing models, and there were some key themes that kept coming up that made me pause and say, okay, well, what are we doing in the spa industry?
Hmm.
How could we be doing things better? And as you know, when we do these podcasts, we learn so much from people, and we get to pick and choose who we want to interview, which is so awesome. So I really I just turned 60. I went gray during COVID, stopped coloring my hair,
Hmm.
because that was sort of like a thing that people in senior living were doing to own their age.
Sure.
So I decided to own my age. It's a personal issue. And also, I believe that this is where business is going. And having
Hmm.
just had Susie Ellis from Global Wellness Institute and Summit on the show a couple of weeks ago, their theme this year is longevity through a wellness lens. And she just said the L word, as you said, is
Hmm.
showing up everywhere. So I think it's a global issue. People are aging. We're woefully unprepared for what's coming, with this shift of an aging population and less young people. Who's going to take care of us when we're
Hmm.
old?
Right.
And there's more solo agers than ever. I think it's 42% of people over 65 are solo, what they call
Really,
solo
meaning
ager.
they're single, they're not in a partnership of some sort?
Exactly.
Wow, that's
Exactly.
a lot.
Yeah, and just because you have kids doesn't mean you're necessarily taken care of. So I think we need to take care of each other, and we need to learn from different countries. There's so much going on, and in the United States, we tend to be fairly insular in our
Hmm.
approach, especially when it comes to senior living, which is a very traditional model that is not what I would call a want-based model. It's a
Hmm.
needs-based model that
Hmm.
basically 9 out of 10 people would like to age in place, which we say that they don't want to go into these kind of places.
Well, it's really interesting, Nancy, that your listenership has shifted to consumer, right? Who want to know
Yes.
more about that. That's really what a great, much bigger market than the professional side is. So let's talk about aging in place and aging gracefully. And what does that mean? I mean, we have the new discussion around health span versus lifespan, right? I mean, it's not, if you're alive, but you're laying in a bed hooked up to equipment, is that really living or is that really enjoyable? The answer is probably no. So people want to age and be vital and healthy. So, how do we shift that conversation into training folks on how to do that, preparing them, as you say, we're woefully unprepared? What do we do?
Yeah, it's such a great question. And I just wrote an article for the International Spa Association recently for their 35th anniversary about the core of the spa industry when I was researching it 30 years ago, before it was hijacked by beauty and brows
Hmm.
and Botox and all that kind of stuff. What the spa industry was really about was the traditional destination spa model combined with traditional European spa therapies, which are kind of coming back around. But the traditional destination spa model, now wellness resort, was eating healthy, moving your body, getting out in nature, managing your stress, and connecting with like minded individuals on the same path.
Kind of
And
blue zones things, right? Those are all the things you do in the blue zones.
Yes, exactly. I mean, we're talking a lot about that today, and the social health component being a big part of it. We found a lot of people that were going to destination spas were going because they were in transition, some sort of transition, whether it was an
Hmm.
illness or divorce or moving, some sort of huge transition, and they go to feel supported. And then that combined with the traditional spa therapies, which we're talking about a lot, sometimes in the extreme these days, like the Wim Hof kind of um,
Hmm.
cold, cryotherapy model. But I don't know if our listeners are familiar with Knipe, who was
Hmm.
a healer out of Germany, and he had different things that he would do. Walking across the grass in the morning was one of them, right?
Right.
And hot, cold, and castor oil
Right.
compresses, and all these kind of things. So those are really good because they're things that you can do at home.
And they
So
still work.
yeah,
I mean, I
yeah,
still do a knife walk when I'm in a spa that has one, and it feels good. It's like it's simple, as you say.
exactly. So I think it comes back to the basics, and this is one of my I wouldn't say pet peeve, but one of my messages is that it's not really about extreme measures. I mean, we talk about rapamycin and metformin and all, it's kind of anti-aging drugs, and take this and do that, and, get an ice bath every day, and all these extreme kind of things. But to me, it really circles back to the basics, which is, can you have access to whole organic food, and are you moving your body every day? I mean, it's definitely a use it or lose it kind of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And aging, being 60, I have to be careful about not going too far so that I injure myself. So
Mm-hmm.
it's a really about a moderation, I think. And when you talk about aging in place doesn't mean necessarily living in your primary home. I mean, Lisa, you moved, made some transitions.
Mm-hmm.
That's aging in place, is really aging where you want to age,
Mm.
not having to leave. And I'll give you a short example. My mom is 82, and she was editing my podcast show notes for a long time, probably the first 100 episodes. And she said to me one day, I'm going to build an accessory dwelling unit because I don't ever want to go into senior living. I know that. And I want to, as they say, take me up feet first, is what a lot of people say.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a good way to go. So she built an ADU so that she would have a room for a caregiver down the line if she needed care. So aging in place really means setting yourself up for success wherever it is you want to age. And I think people often think about things inside the home. And there's a whole occupational therapists are actually really good at helping people age in place. And that would mean home retrofit kind of
Mm-hmm.
things that you plan for, more than deferred maintenance, which a lot of people don't even think about, unfortunately, until it's too late. But it's like, is your primary bedroom on the first floor, or do you have access to the second floor via an elevator or something, which most
Mm-hmm.
people don't? Is your kitchen accessible?
Mm-hmm.
Is your do you have a no step entry so that you can access your home? But beyond that, what is your community like? There's more and more information coming up about social health, which is really being in community. Loneliness is an epidemic in this
Mm-hmm.
country and globally. In fact, the Surgeon General issued, I don't know if you've seen that, a whole white paper on loneliness and social isolation being deadly, being as bad as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. So,
Really?
yeah.
Oh, that's bad.
Yeah, so transportation and access to healthcare and access to your neighbors and that sort of thing are all really integral parts of the aging in place piece. And a good example of a successful aging in place community would be Serenbe. I'm not sure if
Mm.
everyone's familiar with Serenbe. We had the founder on the show a few seasons ago, but Serenbe is
Visited
set.
Serenbe, and I just thought it was fantastic. I mean, just such a great place.
Yes, and it's I think the first true wellness community in the United States,
Hmm.
right?
Right. Purpose built from the ground up. And as you say, with the ability for community, that's a point I wanted to go into based on what you said, Nancy, because we want to stay in our home. And if almost half of us are alone in our home as we're aging, then how do you keep that community piece going? You have to live somewhere where you have access to community outside your door, right?
Yeah.
So Serenbe provides that opportunity, but I could a senior living community does the same.
Yes, but there's some differences. Firstly, intergenerational connection is crucial, and we
Mm,
haven't touched on the ageism piece yet here, but as you know, I'm super passionate about exposing ageism, and especially in our industry that tends to be very much youth oriented industry. But the World Health Organization about 8 years ago started a whole campaign, an anti-ageism campaign. And there's really three ways to overcome ageism outlined in their initiative. And number one is to look at your own internalized views on aging. That starts very, very early. I don't know if you're familiar with the 100-day thing that they do at schools where the young kids dress up as old people. They put
No,
on
that
gray
sounds great though.
daughter around and stutter and so ageism starts very early. So I think the first step is to take a look at our own views on aging. The second is policy, which we will not get into today. And the third is intergenerational connection, which is my point about senior living. At some point, senior living became going out into the suburbs and being a segregated community away from other generations. And that's been proven not to be healthy. And
Hmm.
unfortunately, in senior living communities, there can be a lot of ageism and ableism within the communities. Like I hear middle school, it's like middle school all the time.
Wait, ableism? What's that? Like you are making less of people who can't do what you can do in terms of physical mobility?
Absolutely, absolutely correct. Whether it's
Wow.
mobility or whether it's cognition. So, we don't interact with the memory care people in the memory care
Oh,
ward. They're
goodness.
over there. They have a separate dining room. Or one of the common things in senior living when it's usually the adult daughter that comes to visit that wants to put their aging parent or parents into one of these places, they hide the wheelchairs. So it's like, oh, here's the glass, brass, and marble, and the beautiful
Uh-huh,
lobby and
right.
everything, and we hide
The
the sick
reality of the
people. And
situation. It's so interesting to me that within that cohort of older people, they actually still manage to find a way to, look at others in a different lens.
definitely, definitely, my mom has had friends that moved into a very elite luxury, $18,000 a month senior living
Oof.
community. And one of the ladies came up to the wife and said, we'll show you who the cool people are, and
Mm,
tried to get them over. And they left. They were like, this is a bunch of crap. Like we're not buying into this. But yes, I mean, there's segregation based on income. And like I said, mobility and cognition. It
Well,
seems
and
to be.
I would assume that segregation based on income has already happened to a degree because you're in a place you can afford to be in. And, I know the prices vary widely. So that's the US model. Can you elaborate for us on what happens in other countries that might be a better model?
Yeah, I mean, I would say two countries that I am not that familiar with Asia. I'm learning more about what's going on. I'd say Japan is very progressive.
Mm,
I just learned from Dave McCone, who's part of the Aging Well Initiative, that China is extremely advanced when it comes to taking care of older adults. And Lisa, you just got back from there and
right.
go there all the time, so you could probably speak to that better than I could. But in Europe, the Netherlands is very progressive, and
Mm,
Spain. And interestingly, in Spain, there's intergenerational communities, so not necessarily senior living, and it tends to be a birds of a feather flock together kind of a situation in Spain, where you might have a German community or a Dutch community. So I think that people really like to age with people that they feel a connection with, and so. But segregating based on generations, I don't think is the model that's
mm.
ideal.
No, it seems so. I've seen those examples. I think maybe Sweden too, but probably it was the Netherlands where they have like little kids come in and be with the seniors for lunch or something. And I mean, the interactivity helps both of them.
Absolutely.
The older people love it and look forward to it, and the young people have some olders to look up to. We just don't do enough of that here in the US. I don't know why. I always assume it's because of risk and insurance and lawsuits, and our country seems to be structured around those impediments sometimes. Sometimes there's supports, don't get me wrong, but when you travel the world and you see how some things are done more easily in other places, it's like, oh yeah, I wish we had that.
Well, that's what you do with the spa industry. You travel the world, and then you come back and you integrate and do really innovative things. So I'm always such a huge fan of the work that you do, Lisa.
Oh, I thank you for saying that. I appreciate it.
And you take
So,
such great care of yourself. I mean,
well,
you
I'm
keep.
trying. Listen, this is what you get from a lifetime of working in wellness, right? I have two things. One is that I was a makeup artist when I started in this field in my early 20s. And you see what happens to your skin when you don't wear sunscreen, right? And no amount of makeup can fix that. And so I learned very early, like, there's something to this. I'm going to be careful with myself in terms of sunscreen and mobility and eating right. We all go, you and I both, to these conferences where we listen to one after another learned speaker talk about taking care of the machinery we're given. It seems like pretty basic that you would do that. The second thing for me is that I have a 97-year-old father-in-law who can golf 18 holes, drives himself down here to the city to see us on the weekend and have dinner. And you watch that and you think, okay, I want that, right? I want to be aging that way. And he always just says, you just keep moving. That's the
Yes.
secret. You just don't sit
Don't
down on the
stop. I have an
sofa.
old dog. It's like, don't stop walking him, for God's sakes.
You keep moving.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the technology options, because everything's about technology now. What have you seen that is helpful to this cohort in the aging process that you would say is innovative?
What a great question. And you were my Sherpa at CES. I was
At
a
CES.
Virgin Sherpa, a Virgin
Virgin
um,
CES attendee.
attendee at CES. But the ARP has an Agetech collaborative, and they had a huge booth, and they had panels. And so, yes, there are so many different exciting things going on with Agetech. And Agetech, for our listeners that don't know, is basically any technology that enables people to age better, to have
Mm-hmm.
a good experience when they age well. And it can cross over into different sectors, like time shifter being such a great
Mm-hmm.
example of something that crosses over. It doesn't matter what age you are, but time shifter is good for traveling and for jet lag and that sort of thing. But it can span beyond technologies for aging in place to transportation and travel and tourism, and really kind of every sector. Of course, wellness, but some of the more exciting things that I'm seeing are the remote monitoring through either
Mm-hmm.
radar or, less and less cameras because of the privacy issues. So, but sensors within the home, because even if you are an adult child that lives down the street from your older adult, you don't necessarily know what's going on. And
Mm-hmm.
oftentimes there'll be fear around telling you what's going on because, oh gosh, don't
Oh,
put me in a
sure.
home. So
Mm-hmm.
I
So they
felt
may
that
be
it wasn't that bad.
withholding. They're withholding information.
Oh, yes. And that definitely happens. So there's things that you can do, like say if your older adult has a dog, you can put a sensor on the back door. Are they letting the dog out in the morning and the night?
Mm.
But it's going beyond that to sensors on the toilet for, do you have a UTI? Because a UTI can be very, very harmful to an older adult and can also cause cognition problems that look like, say, Alzheimer's. So, one of the things
Mm.
that's exciting is, you talk about fall detection
Mm-hmm.
and, sensors that detect different things, but the prevention piece, I think, is growing. And I heard this, I saw a panel from the National Sleep Foundation at CES, and sleep technologies are moving more towards this happen to preventing things that might be hindering your sleep and preventing things that might be contributing to you falling down, because a fall is another thing that's extremely detrimental to our
Mm.
health. And I think the statistic is if an older adult breaks their femur, like 30% will be dead within a year. It's a
That's
very serious.
unbelievable.
Yes, because you end up in a hospital, which is the worst. Dr. Bill
Mm.
Thomas, who's a geriatrician and a pretty famous guy in the aging world, says the last place you want to end up is a hospital. Do whatever you can to stay out of a hospital because you don't eat properly. They don't move. They don't let you move. They don't let you socialize. They don't let you sleep. All
Mm-hmm.
those kind of things, and then you leave weaker than you came in. So again, technology wearables are really
Mm.
a big piece of the technology, um, and things for cognition, things that can improve your brain, are really
Beyond
big.
doing the crossword puzzle every day or whatever.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's two things. Again, it comes back to the basics. It's not, when I first started interviewing people, and had a lot of people on that specialized in dementia and Alzheimer's. I thought it was going to be some sort of a, oh, this, take this test and do this technical stuff. But really, it comes down to the basics of eating well. Exercise is the number one thing you can do to help your brain. Number one. And
What amount of exercise is recommended for a senior person?
I think it really depends on where you are. I mean, like I said, I was in a pretty serious horseback riding accident in 2023, and I have some shoulder mobility issues. So for me, I'm trying to do a lot of Pilates and things like that to get my
Mm,
core strong enough and to get my shoulder mobility well
mm,
enough that I can lift heavy weights. Because Dr. Vonda Wright, who's a women's health specialist, just wrote a book called Unbreakable, and she's like, don't use those mansy pansy pink weight, 2 pound weights. You got to lift heavy. But
hmm.
if you can't lift heavy because you have an injury, then it's not going to be good for you. Another example, pickleball. People love pickleball, but
Mm.
pickleball is the number one most the sport that causes the most injuries,
I
and
can
a lot of
imagine.
that, right, is because you are not fit enough or you're too competitive because it's
Right.
super
Or
competitive.
both.
Right, both. So I think it really is such an individual thing. Like I don't, I think these formulas of do this amount or that amount, it's really an individual effort, and it's a slow progression. Like, I don't know if anyone's read Atomic Habits, that
I
book, but it's
did.
like just a 1% increase, right? So
Hmm.
it's like every day try to make the right choices, because as we get older, the choices that we make are more impactful. Meaning that the things that we do to help ourselves are great. The things that we have bad habits, like not wearing sunscreen, or not moving your body enough, or eating ultra processed foods all the time, that those things kind of go and put you in the toilet. So it's such an individual
Fascinating.
thing.
I like the idea of the sensors as opposed to a camera, but you do sort of want to know, but as the child of the older person, you don't want to pry. And I liked your point also that they may not tell you everything. So that seems like a great option. For those who don't know, and our jargon speak, CES is the Consumer Electronics Show. It's the biggest consumer electronics show in the world. It happens in January in Las Vegas. It's a 4-day extravaganza of all things tech, and it's pretty fascinating and daunting. But anyway, all the latest and greatest innovations, and also things that haven't even been made yet, show up there, and it's a great way to see what's new. So, um, Nancy, I'm sure you'll be going again because you
I
discovered a
hope
lot of
so,
great
if I have my
things.
Sherpa. By the way, about your father-in-law,
Hmm.
97-year-old male that's playing golf, super rare. Super rare. 1 in 5 men live past 75.
Is that right? Wow. Well, we
Yeah.
know he's rare, but I mean, it's just amazing to us to watch it. And as a person who is the child of someone that old, you can't then complain about, oh, going up the stairs at my house. I'm like, well, look what he does. So when you have that example in your family, I mean, it speaks to your point earlier about the people around you, right? And the environment you put yourself in. How does this how c what let's talk about how the spa industry can respond to this, right? I mean, obviously we can have services for older people, but do you want to market that way? I mean, are you going to choose that? I mean, what can we do both day spa and destination spa, resort spa that caters to this market?
Well, I just had Alana Alberco on the
Hmm.
show last season. She, for us in the inside, know her as the founder of Innovative Spa Management and Spa Space, which is a technology platform. But she also has a spa in Chicago called Spa Space
Hmm.
that she held on to. She did not sell it in the acquisition to Archimenides. I think the key are two things: community, which is something that you mentioned earlier, and intergenerational connection. So she's doing both of those at Spa Space Chicago. I think that you could speak to this so much better than I can, Lisa, but just the whole idea of accessible wellness through the sauna places and
Mm,
the the thermal water, both memberships and resorts and that sort of thing, are such a great way for the energy for the older people to interact with the younger people. So I don't think with the spa industry it's really about segregating or targeting older people, but I think we could do a better job making older people feel more comfortable, because I do think that there's a lot of ageism in our industry. I've been pretty verbal about it. I hate the phrase anti-aging.
all
I
right.
wish that we would give it up, but we're not. I started a campaign a couple of years ago, get rid of anti-aging by 2025, and kind of had to retreat in
Mm,
shame on that because it's more popular than ever, honestly. But I think one of the things that's important to realize is that stress ages you. So if you are mourning the past,
mm,
mourning your perfect skin, mourning your hot bod, whatever it is, and fearing the future, it's causing stress for you
hmm.
because
Right.
you're not being mindful and you're not being present. So I think the spa industry could do a better job of making people feel okay with whatever they've got. And
Mm,
I think that unfortunately a lot of the cosmetics industry and skincare industry is based on fear and based on, oh gosh, look at that, wrinkle, look at that line, your whatever, and don't you want to combat that and fight your aging process. And when people say, aging sucks, I said, consider the alternative.
right. Right. For
Yeah,
sure. I
aging is
think
living.
yeah, right. We are all dying every day. We know that. It's just that how you manage that, and of course, in your brain. I think that spas could do better in the marketing with the imagery, right? I mean,
Oh,
I'm always
absolutely.
after my clients to say, put someone with silver hair in here, like let people know that this is a place that they can come to as well. It's not all the young, glamorous people who are already beautiful, right? I mean, let's be realistic about that. I was in a med spa 2 weeks ago in Erie, Pennsylvania, called Rejuve, and they had a scale where they weighed you for whatever, some things that require that. But I love that they had a sign above the scale that said, I don't remember word for word, but the concept was, we're not judging you on how much you weigh. That's not what this is about. Appreciate the body you have. This is just a statistic. Because as women, whenever we're asked to get on a scale, we're like, can I take my shoes off first? You always want it to be less. And I love that there was a sort of a nod to, hey, whatever it is, let's just go with that. Let's go ahead with that. I think we do need to do more to let older people know that they're welcome. But the flip side of it, Nancy, and you as a marketer may have some insight on this, is that we know that older generation doesn't spend, on spa services typically. Some of them grew up in the Depression. The concept of getting regular massages is just like, why would I do that? So we have to convince them that there's a benefit to it, to extending their health span if it were. How would we approach that?
It's really frustrating to me. I think the biggest thing that's frustrating to me is the lack of touch therapy within
Hmm.
senior living. I have a colleague that he runs over 1,000 salons and spas within senior living,
That's a
and
lot.
having done, I think they're at 8 million treatments for hair, color, cut,
Mm,
nails and that sort of thing, but less than a couple thousand massages and all of that. And he was saying they don't want it. There's no demand. I think there's staffing issues. There's problems.
for sure.
All that. Maybe escape the
Yeah.
the
The
AI
robotic
driven
massage.
touchless
Hmm.
treatments will bring. But I think one of the things that we need to realize is that the baby boomers are aging, and that they're different from the post war gen.
Hmm.
And I think they will demand, especially at the luxury level. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Mather, but William Wesley Myers is the
Hmm.
VP of Wellness for Mather, and they have luxury. They have a luxury spa in Tucson, and then one that they just built in Tyson's Corner, Virginia, that rivals any luxury spa that you would see in any resort.
Mm.
And it has a salt room, and I think salt therapy is great for older adults,
Sure,
anyone with
respiratory issues,
COPD,
right?
anything like that. So I do think that marketing the benefits of these treatments would be better, because I think that I just find it interesting that people are willing to color and cut their hair every 4 weeks, but then you say get a massage and like, oh, I couldn't possibly afford that. I'm on a fixed
Hmm.
income. So I do think we need to do a better job.
I think we pick and choose as humans, what our causes will be. And of course, the challenge with what we're just describing is that I can't see the massage, right? When I color my hair and I look in the mirror, I'm like, oh, okay, I look like I want to look, but the
Yes.
massage doesn't have a physical, manifestation that others can see. And maybe that's one of the reasons it seems less important. But you and
And my
I know.
stylist is my therapist.
Right, exactly right. We are killing two birds there. But we
Yeah.
do know there's so much power in human touch, and not to mention just the circulatory and other benefits, blood pressure benefits that come from having regular massage. I think we just somehow need to do a better job communicating, as you said, the benefits of it, and starting younger. Maybe as you say, the aging boomers will come into the older generation with that knowledge that this is helpful for me. It's not a fluffy thing to do to have a massage. It's a very good treatment, but I have to sign up and get it, or it's not going to have any effect.
And I have to
Um,
get naked and get on a
mm,
table, which is
mm-hmm,
intimidating for a lot of
mm.
people. It's just like my mom's like, I don't want to be touched. I would never get it. Like she just doesn't, she's not interested.
Yeah, that's really kind of sad in a way, but I know it's a reality that people don't feel comfortable with their body for whatever reason. Um, but, it is what it is. Like you're wanting
Right.
it to be different doesn't make it so. And I think, as we discussed earlier, we have to appreciate the equipment we have and do the best we can with it. Move it, feed it, get sleep. I mean, you said that so much is about attitude. And you had mentioned to me that there's research from Yale about having positive attitudes and how that um, affects you. Could you elaborate on that?
Yes, because it's such a passion of mine. And it was something I didn't know when I started the podcast. But the book that I suggest that your listeners read is called Breaking the Age Code, and it's by Becca Levy
Hmm.
out of Yale University. And Yale has done a study that positive views on aging add 7.5 years to your life.
That's
And
a
that
lot.
has been corroborated by 15 other studies globally. So it's not just the Yale study that says this, but I think
It could be
two
10%.
things
That could be
as
10% longer of your life.
yeah, yeah, and it ties so deeply in with ageism, because if you believe the myths, some of the myths of aging, that aging is nothing but inevitable decline, then you're going to believe that, and that's what you'll get. But two pieces I think that are kind of tangential but important to the positive aging thing. One is lifelong learning,
Hmm.
and the other is purpose. And I mean, Lisa, you're such a great example of that, because I mean, lifelong learning, like you are like the global goddess, man. You're out there
Thank
like
you.
every week on an airplane doing it, working. I mean, you're at the height of your career.
I'm
Uh,
curious.
yeah, you definitely. And I think that you're a perfect example of aging well, because you're giving back in that you're giving to the industry, but you're also that have that curiosity of lifelong learning. And that
Thank
is
you.
completely the opposite of decline. That's
Mm.
living your best life. And I think that that's the number one thing that the Japanese call it ikigai, that which gets you up for breakfast.
Uh-huh. They do it well, those Japanese folks. They're so graceful and respectful. it's such a great community. I would love to spend more time there. And they do
I'm just
care for
waiting for
their
your book.
elders. Yeah. It's just a great way to be healthy, recognize community, recognize the extended family, and do good things for yourself. But staying positive can be difficult. I think it's probably bridging that gap between expectation and reality, right? That we have to accept at some point when you do look in the mirror and you don't look like you used to. And it's like, okay, but you've got to
Yes.
stay positive, right? Because as you said earlier, what's the alternative? I mean,
Right. I mean, I talk about this. We do these better with age events at country clubs and senior living communities, glowing
hmm
older. And I tell the story of my horseback riding accident because
mm,
I was literally, my whole thing was I was going to be that gray haired rider. I was going to be
mm,
taking off my helmet. My
ah,
hair was going to, my gray hair, like I was going to ride until I couldn't walk anymore. And then I got in this accident and I broke my cheekbone and I hit my head. And my
mm.
family was like, you're done riding. And my first thought was, screw you guys, like, what are you talking about? And then knowing what I know about cognitive decline, knowing that I know that traumatic brain injury, and I've had more than one, causes cognitive impairment. I knew that I had to rethink the whole thing. So it's like I had a pity party for a while, for sure,
Mhm, mhm,
but I decided to make a new relationship with my horses. So it's like the horses now. I'm hoping to do. There's something called Connected Horse, and they
mhm.
have
I know about
programs
that.
where they have people with cognitive impairment and their caregivers, and they bring them together through equine learning. And so I thought, okay, well, I'm still going to be involved with horses because they're in my heart, and but I'm
And they're in
going
your
to,
stable too,
yeah.
not just your
Well, one
heart.
of them just died, unfortunately,
Oh,
a couple weeks
sorry.
ago. But I we have a choice, and I think a huge point you brought up is that it ain't all unicorns and roses as we
Mhm,
age. There are things that happen. We lose people. We get illnesses. We can't run the quarter mile as fast as we used to.
mhm,
But I think one of the things about positive aging to remember are some of the things that get better with age are not necessarily the metrics we think about. When we think about that running that quarter mile or is our skin smooth, but some of the things that get better with age are invisible.
mhm.
We don't sweat the small stuff.
True.
Wise. Not everyone's wise. If you're a jerk, you're a jerk. But a lot of us get more wise as we get older. So this ability to have a perspective, and as these things happen to us that are bad, we're able to not take them as hard. And if you look at, I mean, I think that there's just a woman that they interviewed that was 117, and then of course Deborah Zake from Rancho
Right.
La Puerta is 103. Uh, but those kind of people, it's like they get out of bed every day and they make the best out of it, whatever that day looks like.
Mhm,
And we do what we can do. So when you say, okay, well, what should a person do when they get older? Well, you should try to eat as clean as you can within
mhm,
reason and having some joy there. And we should try to move our body as much as we can. We should prioritize our sleep. We should get out in nature. All those kind of things are the basics, but each individual is going to know what they're capable of doing. And if it's not a marathon, then maybe it's a nature walk, right?
mhm. Right. But getting outside is so important. It seems that that was a thread in the blue zones. I mean, people that gardened, that, went out into nature is very important and not good to sit in your condo in the city and look out the window. You have to go out there. Um,
No, get
but,
off ChatGPT.
it's resolve, right? It's having the resolve to do some of this. But if you want to, it's never too late to start, right? I mean, you can be 65. My father-in-law I mentioned already took up race walking at 62 when he retired from his long job. He became a world champion at every distance at his age category. Like, and so again, I have that model of like, well, gee, I mean, I'm not taking up a new sport at my age, but why not, right?
Right.
We put those sort of reserves on ourselves of
Internalized
what we can
ageism.
do, right? So, Nancy, what do you think about the term biohacking that we're hearing so much of? Do you think that that's relatable to the aging population and that they should embrace the concept? What are your thoughts?
Well, um, I think that biohacking's important segment of longevity. It certainly is one of the things that shows up in the media a lot. What I have a problem with are the extreme measures
Mm,
without acknowledgement of the basics. The whole, I won't mention any name, but don't eat kale. Kale's terrible;
hmm
it'll kill
mm,
you. Those kind of things, or take this drug or take that drug. And I do have a problem with the biohackers that are hawking supplements, and there's a
mm,
lot of them.
mm,
And I think that there's an inherent conflict of interest. Certainly, a lot of these biohackers are not medical doctors, because if they were medical doctors, they would have a lot more stringent regulatory
mm,
initiatives in
right.
place, but they don't because they're not. So it's like I would say consider the source of the biohacking, and a lot of them, like you said, are just about like how long can I live? I want to live to 150, and I think it should be a balance. And I think that joy. There's a Dr. Carrie Burnite. She's been on our show a couple times. She just wrote a book called Joy Span, and it's like, well, how much joy can you put into your life?
Mm-hmm.
And if you become too extreme, I think you can strip some of the joy out of your life, and that again causes stress, which causes you to age. And if it's not fun, then why are we here, right? We should all be having some fun.
You make a great point about the joy because I think I see that in aging folks. But to me, it looks like it's a reflection of discomfort, right? Like your comfort zone seems to become smaller in a way, like, or maybe you're just less tolerant of things as you age that are not comfortable for you. And you say, well, I'm not doing that anymore. And then it causes sort of this constriction that makes you seem less flexible or willing to try new things. And I don't know, maybe there's a connection there in the way that we pull in and then become more rigid and then lose a little joy. Does that make sense?
It does, and I'm coming back to you, Lisa, because the travel piece I think is really, really important. I think
Mm,
the more you travel and the more you see different perspectives and the way people live, and that's a really great way to stay young. To me, that's a biohack.
hmm Well, it's what works for you, right? My travel can seem extreme to other people, including some members of my family, but it is important and it does shape my worldview in what I have, how I live, appreciation for what's around me. I mean, when you travel and you see how other people live, and you could never complain about our standard in the US is pretty high, right? Politics notwithstanding, we're in pretty good shape. So,
Yeah.
but it's choice, right? You make a choice to be positive and see the glass half
Yes.
full or empty. And I don't know if any
So true.
biohacking can
Choices.
address that. But I mean, I hear you on the supplements. I do think that things like PEMF mats and red light therapy and halo therapy, are very nice and can be very helpful, but not done in extreme. I mean, certainly the extreme heat and cold is probably not ideal of a cold plunge and a sauna for older bodies, but there's no reason you can't do it and just in moderation, right?
Right.
All things in moderation. So, where do we go from here in the spas? I want spa business listeners to have a takeaway about what they might do in terms of their marketing or their menu to make sure we're addressing the needs of this generation.
Gosh, what comes to mind firstly is um, have opportunities for your guests to interact with your staff and with other guests. So if there's any way, I hear a lot, and you probably more than me because you're in the development side, change that maybe where you had 4 pedicure stations into a social room, which
Mm,
is what Alana Alberco did at Spa Space Chicago. And then I always think that spas are such good platforms for education on health and wellness. So bring in experts, share your expertise, let your staff share expertise. I
mm,
personally think I wouldn't be as healthy or as happy had I not had the spa industry as
mm.
a guide in my
Right.
30 years. I had Anne Bramham come to Cornell, and I tell her this all the time, but she slammed her fist on the table. She said, "We've got to get spa therapy." And I was like, "Whoa, man, this person is so passionate about spa." And it is. I mean, something as simple as contrast therapy, the vasoconstriction, vasodilation,
Mm,
and that art of spa. I mean, there's so many benefits from touch therapy to skin health to just that educational piece. And then letting the guests share their experience with other guests and feeling that connection. I think people that gravitate to spas are that kind of birds of a feather flock together. I've met some amazing people at destination spas, wellness resorts, now they're called, and I'm sure you have too.
mhm.
People that are like become lifelong friends.
Very much so. There's also a good resource I want to mention because I just read this that Global Wellness put out on it's a wellness policy toolkit. And you can find it at globalwellnessinstitute.org if you look up wellness policy, but it's like a toolkit of ideas promoting local regulations and activities that help older people stay active and engaged. As a spa owner, you can access that for free and see if there's anything in there that you can do. Nancy, what's next for you in terms of staying young? What do you have planned that's exciting that will bring you some joy?
Oh gosh, what a great question. Well, I'm doing a little bit of travel. I'm hoping to make it to Dubai for the Global
Great.
Wellness Summit. I'm going to the ICAA conference, the International Council of Active Aging conference. I'm going to CES. So I really just like continuing to be part of this industry that's helping people to age better longer. And
Hmm.
it's an exciting time. And I really am such a big proponent of this message of it's not all inevitable decline. Don't believe all the myths. Balanced with, yes, it will be hard. And it's not, I don't want to be the Pollyanna coming in and saying, it's going to be all great because it's not. But for me, it's really just about continuing to learn and continuing to fight the good fight of helping people learn that what they've been buying into is not necessarily the case.
Hmm. Well, I have to thank you not just for your time today, but all the valuable work you've done and invested in this segment. I mean, the concept is so apt for everyone it applies, right? There's no one that escapes this concept of aging gracefully. You can find more about Nancy Griffin at glowingolder.com, which is such a great name, by the way. Glowing
Thank
Older.
you.
I mean, it's perfect. So, thank you again for joining us and for these ideas on aging gracefully. I plan to follow them, and I know you do too. So thanks for your time.
I can't wait to see what you'll do at 97.
Oh, I hope I can show you. Take care.
Thank you.